my neighbors!
Hello! Say hello to my little friend.
You don't have any friends.
I was kidding.
But I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you?
Dude!
Welcome to another edition of
J-O-B. Yes.
What y'all got going here is genius.
No problemo. This is
The Job and Knock podcast.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Hello and welcome to the Job and Knock podcast. In this episode of the podcast, we use some adult language and we say a few bad words. You have been warned.
If you know what I mean. No one's going to understand anything we say today.
It'll be yum, 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 and rice, pies, chips and gravy.
That's it, mate. That's it. We're in trouble. Hello, it's me, Dan, and this is John, and this is the Job and Knock podcast. And today we are blessed with your beautiful face, John. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
So I'll start, John, like I start with the rest or most of the podcasts, as just explaining how we know each other so that people get a good idea of what's going on and why I would have asked you to come and bless us with your valuable time. And like most things, obviously, because this is mainly a recording and there's no video and there's just audio, no one can see what's behind me. But it's a little bit clear picture of how I met you.
There's a bit of marketing going on behind.
Nah, this is just a unit, mate. I am in no way, shape or form pushing this brand on anyone. What you described, Jake, as I've mentioned in all the other podcasts, is how I've come to meet most of people through social media, including yourself, John. And also, we've had the pleasure of meeting you in person too, because we've been on many, what we would call when we have a little tool show gathering or a drink. What's the excuse that we can actually call it?
Everybody will call it a jolly, but I was going to say that it was an interaction of tradesmen, their tools and their surroundings in an organised gathering with food and alcohol.
I tell you what, John, I'm not going to change that whatsoever. It was almost like that was rehearsed. You, sir, know exactly what to tell your wife.
Absolutely.
Brilliant, John. Wow, I'm pretty amazed, John. That was really, really good. But yeah, so the U-Scribe story has luckily brought us in front of people like yourself, John. And we've gone to many a tool fair, like we've just said, and had many a good time. But would you please tell us a bit about your background and how you came to be in the trade?
So I started way back in 1987 as a just then YTS carpenter and joiner, going to a college 1 day a week and working for a fencing company. My very first job working for them was building bird tables, rabbit hutches, and fixing fence panels together in the mill. And that was the very first thing I did in 1987. I travelled on my BMX bike to my job interview on the very first day. And I had my toolbox strapped over the back mudguard, which everybody used to wind me up about the fact you don't have a mudguard and a BMX. You do if you put a toolbox on the back.
Yeah, you do.
That was where I very first started back in 1987.
And where is this, John? Tell us where you're from.
So I'm from South Midlands. I'm from the Redditch area, Worcestershire. I was born in Staffordshire, but we moved over here through my father's business. And very quickly I became interested in that side of it because my granddad used to do carpentry maintenance at Cadbury's.
Nice.
Back just after the war and obviously during the Second World War. So my fond memories as a teenager or a preteen was going over to my nan and granddad's for Sunday lunch and then sort of, I would say, helping him in his shed stroke workshop. But obviously I don't think he would have thought it was the same back in those days. But that inspired me. That's what got me into what I did.
That's cool. So your granddad was working at Cadbury's, which that must have been a good screw anyway. That sounds like a good job. You know, free chocolate. I'm sure you had your fair share of free chocolate when you were a kid then.
Oh, Listen, we used to laugh about the gold ticket because every Sunday my nan would bring out what we used to describe as the best selection of Cadbury's free chocolates in the world.
So you used to get a selection box every week?
Absolutely. And who cares if the wrapper wasn't on straight? And who cares if the curly whirly didn't have the curly whirly bit in it? I wouldn't have cared. One big blob. That was where we started. So my love of chocolate and wood was almost on a par in those days.
That's not a bad way in though, John. I'll be honest with you.
No,
that's a great way into the industry. Free chocolate and woodwork.
It's almost as if somebody was saying, "This is what you can do. This is what you can get." And I think maybe I enjoy the wood a bit more than the chocolate now, but certainly that was an inspiration for me.
Yeah. I'll probably say during this current lockdown, I'm probably enjoying the chocolate more than the wood.
Absolutely.
That sounds good though, John. It sounds like a cracking way. I mean, I bet a lot of guys or people that are in the trade, especially some that I speak to, seem to have all started by a little bit of an influence from maybe their uncle or the granddad or the dad. I had Matt Moore on the other day, who is based in Florida, American friend of mine, and his dad's company was building houses. So he started in it about 8 years old, brushing up, and then before you know it, he's knocking bits up and he's helping on the job, and his holidays and his free time are spent working with his family. And I think probably someone like yourself, you're probably more interested in being in your granddad's shed, messing around with the tools than you were playing football. And I think a lot of people end up that way. I mean, I was a little bit different. I was a bit sporty, so woodwork came a bit later. But I do envy it a little bit. It sounds like a good upbringing, if you know what I mean, like messing around.
I come from a non-sports family. The only sports that we did was motorsports, and that was from the age of 13. And my father got me into autograss racing.
Autograss racing?
Autograss racing, where you race modified and unmodified vehicles on an oval track. Sometimes that can be grass or mud. And that was my crash course. I could drive before I was legally able to drive. And some say that was the worst part of my driving, because then when I got on the road, I still thought I was on the track.
To be honest, I thought you were going to say like you race lawnmowers or something ridiculous there.
However, the go-kart as a young lad that we had, that my father made, had a Briggs & Stratton lawnmower engine on, because he broke the shaft on the lawnmower, and we decided to turn it into a go-kart. How that happened, I have no idea.
So it wasn't too far off, John.
My brother was the mechanic in those days. So
it wasn't too far off. I guess there was some lawnmowers coming back into play.
Lawnmowers were fine. The only problem was the clutch. You had to. And a lot of lawnmowers back in the 80s didn't have clutches. It was turn it on and off you went.
So it was 1987, did you say, when you started the apprenticeship? And that was, I take it with a local company, and you said it was at Trowbridge, was it?
No, it was just outside Redditch.
Redditch, that was it, sorry.
At that time, I was working out in Western Subedge, out in just before the Cotswolds. So at that time, we used to travel, and much as it's very different now with how you can travel, we were, the three of us, on the back of the transit pickup with the other two in the front, and you would hold on for dear life for 9 miles whilst your boss drove you to work on the back. And if it was a rainy day, we had a tarpaulin sheet.
See, now I've heard some stories. Now, obviously, John, you are of a slightly different generation than from myself and quite a lot of people that I speak to. Because obviously, again, with social media, we'll touch on. Yeah. Majority of people seem to be around my age, so in the 30s or 40s, without giving away your age or.
Listen, I don't mind people saying that, but I'm on my 15th apprentice, so that probably shows my age.
Yeah, a little bit. But more to the point is, a bit. I think I was having a chat with Alistair from Freebird Interiors. I don't know if you know Alistair or you've come across him, Alistair, yet.
No, not that I can think of.
It's hard of social media, mate. There's so many people, isn't there?
There's thousands. People that know you, but you have no idea who they are.
Yeah, there's a lot of that too. And then we were on about he had a different way into woodwork than myself. Obviously, I still did an apprenticeship at 17, but I spent a year messing around doing sports science. And I spoke to Alistair about some of the stories some of the older guys would tell us about their apprenticeships. You know, I thought I had it rough when I was doing my apprenticeship, but the kids now really, as much as it pains me to say they don't know they're born, because it's like a repeat record, they honestly haven't got a clue. I mean, you were on the back of a transit truck with a tarpaulin in the rain.
Tarpaulin sheet in the rain. and the only upgrade from that is that we were allowed to, at lunchtime, me and one of the lads, Colin, who's an old friend of mine, we actually built out of the fencing panels that were going scrap outside. We built ourselves like a little pent box on the back with a piece of glass in. And as it went on, we slowly improved its insulation, because you got to think, back in the 80s and 90s, we had proper winters. So, if you were going outside, it was 2 foot of snow. If you're going outside, it was -5, -6. We were still expected to go to work in those days. There was none of this, I can't come in today, it's snowing. Literally you were dragged out of the house in the morning. The pickup picked me up at the top of the road. And I would have said after about 6 months, we'd created this home from home, 2 little bench seats. We'd actually got some spare seat belts out of my old autograss car, and we bolted them to the wooden frame. Now, in those days, we thought that was safe. Nowadays,
sounds like an absolute health and safety nightmare these days.
But none of us died. We're all still here to show.
True.
And when you hear apprentices complain, the train wasn't on time, the bus was late, I didn't get up this morning, my alarm didn't go off, you think, God, at 6 o'clock in the morning, I was out on the back of a van, freezing cold for 45 minutes on the way to work, and then we started work.
Yeah, and then started work. It sounds a bit like you were recreating like one of them. Have you ever seen the Beverly Hills Hillbilly film?
Hillbillies, yeah.
Where
I would describe,
they've got that car. Yeah. It sounds like your van.
I would describe our journey to work as one from Mad Max, and that was the original Mad Max, not the next one.
Yeah, the really rough Mad Max.
That's it. Yeah.
You're all painting your faces and throwing rocks at people as you're getting into town.
and listen, many items were dipped in the fencing vat. Trust me, lots of things came out the wrong colour, and that would include your hair.
Just imagine, because the wind-ups and the things you used to do to each other were next level as well, weren't they? I mean,
we'd be in prison nowadays, don't?
You can't. I mean, luckily in my job, I have only had a few apprentices or people who've worked with me in that kind of a way, and only one of them really worked out, and the lad moved to Australia eventually, so he's done really well for himself. But the others, I was always second guessing myself, because I've spoke about it before, the old guys used to hit me on the back of the elbows with a hammer if you were not on the ball or you'd messed up, and that was enough. One of them, 2 of them round your elbow, and you would not make the same mistake again. Whereas now, I've been picking lads up in the morning, and they've been texting me whilst I'm on the way to say I'm not very well and I can't come work. And it didn't fly even when I was doing my apprenticeship, because mobile phones still weren't. They were about, but not everyone had one. The boss didn't have one. You would have to ring his business phone, shall we say, if you were ever that sick to not come in, and you would get a phone call back at 8:05.
Yeah.
What's up with you? You're coming in work. I'm coming pick you up. And then you ended up going work anyway, feeling rough as.
I think it was more man up, wasn't it? In those days, you if you had a runny nose or you had a cough or you had a cold. I mean, my introduction to alcohol was later in life. It was about 19, 20. I'm glad I didn't drink when I first started, because you can imagine going in feeling hungover.
I spent a lot of my youth having a lot of fun, John, and I won't change it for nothing. But I've spent a lot of days wishing I was dead because I've been drank that much.
Yeah.
Oh God! So I wouldn't change it. But then again, I think you knew where to draw the line. You had to go to work, and some of the machinery that you'd be working or using, you would. You could
the bandsaws and stuff. You would have got fed through if you didn't get it right. I've got all mine. I'm very proud to say all the machinery I've worked with, I've got all mine. Thank you very much. And it was it's very scary to meet up with people that don't have a lot of the digits left.
Yeah, I've got a couple of mates that do quite a bit of the hands off. Surface planer seems to be the biggest culprit, catching people out, passing.
I think
a little bit too.
one thing for me was spindle moulders.
Terrifying. I've said that before.
Why would you wish to pass your fingers past the blade that's spinning in the direction that to grab you? I know many people that
you rip your arm off because they're very noisy. I mean, the modern day equivalents are nice. They're like Rolls Royces in comparison.
Yeah.
I mean, we were using our Wadkins, and they were terrifyingly noisy. And as soon as the auto feeders got really good and you could put the auto feeders on, it meant you weren't putting your hands anywhere near the machine, but the noise and the chips were flying off.
Yeah.
It was almost a bit like a game where you were keeping your eye on the tool, but you were dodging all the bits flying off.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like
working.
Sorry, John. The signal
working with machinery that young, you learned a different respect in those days because you knew. I mean, a
lot of the machines now, obviously, I'm in a workshop scenario now where obviously we're quite lucky that we've got a Conturo for edging and we've got a small Usenet CNC and things like this that you'd never existed before. So a lot of the tricky or jobs that would catch you out are done by machines, aren't they? I mean, we're a little bit lucky, or we can buy it in, whereas you couldn't buy it in then either. You had to make it, didn't you? Whereas a lot of stuff now, especially, Chinese markets and a few other markets that exist, a lot of it you can get pre-assembled, or and maybe that's a talking point for the future with pre-assembled.
Yeah, it will be.
Things that you can buy in
industry,
because
completely.
It's changing a lot of the new builds already, isn't it? Where some of the non-skilled workers, which isn't fair. I don't mean it in that regard. Obviously, some of the guys are probably just as good as some of the others with papers, but they're then doing jobs for a lot cheaper because it always comes down to money. And then
absolutely,
this banging stuff. But again, me and you, luckily, John, we don't kind of do a lot of that work, so we're still a little bit traditional.
Mine are always one-offs and specials. So people aren't prepared to wait 2 or 3 weeks for you to get something. So you have to know how to adapt to pattern make and to sort it yourself, which is pretty much how I was taught.
Yeah, it's probably one of the things also that has changed a lot in the job over the years. Especially you've probably seen it, John, more so than me, because when I started my apprenticeship and with furniture makers and obviously installing and a lot of similar work that was about at the time has seemed to be phased out. So everyone seems to be a specialist these days, whereas probably someone like yourself now who's worth more, I would say, than someone of my generation, purely because your skill set is far broader. Do you know what I mean? Like if I look up and down your social media, or if I spoke to you on the phone one week you're on a roof, next week you're on a fence, next week you're making a bespoke staircase, the next week you're making bespoke windows, the next week you've refabricating, taking old doors off, taking them back to your workshop and remolding them. And I mean, there is some guys out there that are still doing that, but I bet you've seen the skills gap widen.
Yes, very much so. Because people back in the old days we used to have, so you'd have a site chippy, then you'd have first fix. In fact, no, you'd have one before that. So the very, very first job that I learned was shuttering chippy, where you went in to form the formwork for the concrete to be poured. That was a shuttering chippy. Then you got a site chippy, which was your crash bang wallop. Then you got a first fix. Then you got a second fix. And then as I progressed all the way through, although it's still not recognised as an actual, you went from second fix to shop fitting, and in between shop fitting and joinery was something we used to call third fix, which is where you were sent to do something that was very expensive and you only got one go.
Yeah.
And there was only one of them, and that person had to be trusted to be able to go. So, for instance, now I teach all of my lot, the whole lot, all the way through, because I was taught to cut a tree down, take it to the sawmill, put it through the mill, do whatever needed doing with it, whether it was seasoned or come back to it or go through, to be able to take it then and produce the item for which you would fit in the end and finish. So I've learned everything from the tree all the way through to the finished job. And I teach all of the guys that I teach, and obviously I've got one girl now, which I'm teaching the same, is you need to be able to learn how to do that, because I'm not always going to be there, and don't always rely on the person that just because they're older or younger may or may not know that, because a lot of them have never been taught at all. Some of them have survived in the trade by just doing one job, which they learned in a garage or a workshop at night time to practice, because they knew they were going to be doing it for 5 or 10 years.
Definitely. I mean, I fell a cropper to that myself when I was. So when I was kind of put out there, there's the tools, there's the job. See you in a few hours, and I'll check on you. Kind of finding your feet in the job.
Yeah. It's scary.
Yeah, terrifying. I mean, God, I remember going out with what I would now class as really rough horse tools and still having to make, well, it probably wasn't as good as we can get the finish now, but what I mean is it was as good a finish as I could have achieved what I had at the time. But knowing that the older guys are going to come and rip me a new one if it's not as they expect, because it's their heads on the line, not mine, because they're the ones, you know, who are going to put it right, or I don't know, say get the telling off if it doesn't work out. But then as I progressed, so I quite liked doing different aspects of the job. So I was similar to probably like what you said, is I like to do a bit of the first fix, I like to do a bit of the second fix, I like to do a little bit of the finishing, I like to do a bit of the milling. And we used to, I mean, we didn't fell trees, so I'm not going to say that level. We used to get, obviously, the timber in. You know, there was no tree felling where I was. But we did everything from scratch and all the way through. But then, obviously, a lot of older guys, you just expect them to know the answer or be good at their job. And you slowly, as you get a little bit braver, start realizing that's not always the truth. They're not always as good as you expect. So you're giving some of the older guys a job. I say giving some of them. We're doing a job. And I'm looking at their work going, oh, if I was doing that, I would probably get a backhander. But, you know, at what point do you tell them? And then, as you get a bit older, I told a few of them, that's toss. I think that's very good. And you get used to then maybe questioning them or telling them. But that's very difficult. I find that difficult still to this day, as confident as I like to think I am. When you've got to question somebody on what they're doing, sometimes I always come about it the nice way at the start. But sometimes you just go, to be fair, with those, it's normally just the guys that fit the stone. Obviously, like I do a lot of kitchens and bedrooms, don't I? So the worktops. And they'll be doing templating. And I have absolute breakdowns because I can't cope with the way they template. Like, I've done my own stone and I've templated my own stone. And, I know how I like to do it. But they'll just do a template. And if it's 30 mil short, they'll just put plus 30 on the end of it. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. That's not how it works. It might be plus 30 there and plus 35 there. You go, I'll put plus 35 there. No, you can't do that. There's gaps everywhere. And but they're older guys. So initially I didn't say anything to them. And I just thought, and they were coming back, and it really wasn't good enough for the company that I was doing the work for. And it was like, well, the owner is a little bit anti-confrontational. He's very good at his job, but I was like, Sean, you need to tell them, really, it's a bit rough horse. It's like, we'll have a word with them. And I thought, you know what, fuck it. The next time they come, I'm just going to tell them. And to be fair, most of them are good. It was just a few of them that had me on edge. But like I say, these are older guys, 20 years my senior. Yeah. I'm telling them that's not good enough. It's a tricky little thing to be doing, isn't it, when you feel younger and maybe less experienced than these experienced guys. But like you said, it does come down from your upbringing in the industry to how your finish work ends up. And I think that's testament to, like, say, you've had 15 apprentices. I don't know how many have carried on into woodwork. But then when you see them down the road and, they're now sole traders or self-employed and making a living for themselves, you think to yourself, well, they did it right. I taught them right. And now the proof's in the pudding, is the... Yeah,
absolutely. I've been lucky because I've always chosen to keep going, even when they don't actually think they're going to make it. Just keep going until you find something that they do. And one lad, he couldn't measure. He certainly couldn't cut straight, and that included with a saw on a rail. So how on earth he would have coped in there? And now he doesn't do carpentry and joinery anymore. He's in construction, but he's in demolition. And that lad's really good. He's the foreman on site now. And he's only 25, 26 years old. That man wasn't put on this planet to make things. He was put on this planet to destroy them, but he does it very well. So credit where it's due. credit where it's due. He still does do a little bit of carpentry and joinery, not a lot. But as he said, I think I found my way, John. He said I was never meant to make things nice. He said I was meant to take them apart. And, you know, I hope that if it works, it works. It pays the bills.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's found his niche, hasn't he?
Absolutely.
That's the thing. We all go down that path. I mean, obviously, purely through social media, I follow very similar people to myself because that's what I'm interested in. But then there's the odd characters that I'm following that are construction or landscaping or plastering or electrics that I really have got an interest in, but it's not my field, so I can't watch it and go, they're wrong or they're right. But, you know, there's a few of them that I've spoke to where I've gone, when did you become an electrician? Well, I started off as a bricklayer and then ended up being a joiner, then ended up being a sparky. You know, there's them guys out there that go through 3-4 reinventions before they find the calling.
Yeah. Well, multi-trade was a proper thing, wasn't it, in the 90s? It was a proper thing, multi-trade. You had somebody that turned up that could do the brickwork, that could put the roof on, that could do the plastering, but you wouldn't let them anywhere near the second fix carpentry.
No, yeah, I was about to say the multi-trade guys I know, who still multi-trade guys, some of the older guys who I still see, I call them builders because a lot of them have gone that way because obviously I think that's where they transition to. It seems to be very frivolous, isn't it? They seem to do all right out of it. They've all got nice cars and nice houses. But they were multi-traders. They've all said, well, I used to do footings and I was a joiner. And then, then what it was, you could get your gas certificate, you know, in a year then. In comparison to, I'm exaggerating, obviously, probably a bit longer.
But being dragged across the coals.
It wasn't as difficult, so you could have gone work for MEB for a year, but then come away with your gas certificate. There was a ton of little ways in and out, wasn't there, where you can got your qualification that worked then, whereas now, you know, them qualifications obviously all need upgrading, and that's why the electricians are on 29th edition. Gas fitters have to go back to college every 6 months to be told how to do the exact same job. But them guys end up being builders, most of them, I find.
They use the phrase time served. I do like that.
Well, yeah, like time served. Someone said that to me the other day, and I think I said time served, and then I wanted to punch myself in the face because I thought, I've been doing it 5 minutes. We were my time served. Who do I think I am? I thought, I still get it wrong all the time every week, John. Don't watch my Instagram.
Yeah, that's right. I have a problem with being on time, if that's any consolation.
Oh, that's it's a good job Scotland to you. Let's just put it that way. Time. I like time, but time doesn't like me.
Interesting.
I mean, I don't take the mick, but I'm not the. I don't. You know, you've got your mates that are really strict on time. So if they need to be somewhere 8 o'clock, they're there at 7:30. I'll turn up at 8 o'clock, or maybe 5 past. And just crack straight in. I don't need the warm up. I can just get there and go.
You're right.
So we'll dip back into you, John, just because we'll keep flicking off. This is how these podcasts and these chats work, because we'll keep flicking off. So I say you became a tradesman, shall we say. We won't brand you as a joiner or a builder or a carpenter or whatever at the minute, because I know you do a good job, for one, John. I like to watch your work for 2. 3, you do a varied amount of work, which is nice to see. But I've looked down your past work quickly just before we came up. And like you say, you can see, I think there was one post, and I think I'd spoke to you about it at the time. You were in a gutter or in a drain with your phone for some reason. You were grinding something, or you were trying to cut something, and you were trying to explain to people why you were down a drain. And just to explain, like, the way that you've started your work, but now you do all these kind of jobs. And what I've seen you doing recently, just because you can do it, plus the lockdown, is you've been doing a lot of roofing and repointing of chimneys, which you seem to be enjoying. I went from working for the outdoor fencing company into a joiner's shop, and then from a joiner's shop then
I went to work for a construction company, and I started work for them in 1990 or 1991. I was 21 years old, I remember. And they did everything. They did everything, that construction company. But my initial job was doing carpentry and joinery. We would always install all of the entry door systems, and a lot of it was hardwood. And that was my first big into hardwood in those days. So I sort of went from everything softwood to hardwood. And then when I moved across to another construction company, and we were talking about being young, at the age of 24, I was made junior foreman. Now, when you're 24 years old, you think that the junior foreman is, you don't look at the responsibility, you look at the fact that you're being paid more than other people.
Yes.
So 24 years old, I was earning £100 a week more than everybody else was. Now, £100 a week in 1992, extra than what you were already earning or what everybody else was earning, was quite a lot of money. And I remember I always described it as being dropped in the swimming pool without the rings or the armbands and see if you can float. And my very, very first job as a foreman was to set out the car park and the interceptor and the drainage in a sorting office in Craven Arms in Shropshire. And I'd never used a dumpy level. There were laser levels, I think, were only just around in those days. They'd just started. And I remember being taught by one of the ground workers how to sort out the invert level and the out level on a massive manhole in the middle of a car park, which was at that time a bare field. and that was my introduction to that. And I remember in my own time stopping over one night with the JCB driver, with him showing me how to use this, how to understand the way the drains flowed, what sort of fall they needed to be in.
Yeah.
And I found myself in the space of a year becoming a car park drainage expert. And I was carpentry enjoying it.
This is it. So like you said, you've been chucked in the deep end. And you've
chucked in at the deep end. And I remember somebody saying to me, we've heard good things about the sorting office. The post office master came back and said that the car wash actually drained away at this particular site, whereas at the other ones it didn't. And I thought, well, that was my understanding. I think gravity and turn of the bubble and all those other phrases that you'll hear everybody use is, I learnt how to read a drawing for which terrified me 10 years earlier at college. I had no idea. Technical drawings were my maths was rubbish, my English was rubbish, and somebody said to me, if you can't use your head, then you need to use your hands. And I found a way of adapting that. I didn't know what percentages were and ratios were and 1 in what and 2 in this and 10 in that. And I used to think it was a wind-up.
Well,
and then somebody showed me.
To this day, though, John, you look at a technical drawing, someone lays out in front of you and you go, this is going to take like a few hours just to get your head around. And that's without working anything out. That's just so you can figure out in your head how you can then relay this information back down to the job site. So I can imagine at 24, I don't think I had that kind of pressure at 24. It
was sink or swim, Dan. It was.
Yeah, I could imagine.
And I remember going home and speaking to my father and saying to him, I've got absolutely no idea what I'm doing. He said, well, why did they give you that job? I said, it's a test, Dad, isn't it? It's a test. This test to see if I can do. And then they put me on the next sorting office. And that was in 25 was my very first £500,000 job. And that scared me, I think, more than anything else.
What, £500,000 in the 90s?
£500,000 contract in 1994 or 95 was my...
It's probably double and a half now, isn't it?
It scared me because I'd never been in charge of anything more than a few £100. Now I've got 10 men, most of them double my age, asking me, what are we doing this morning, John?
Yeah.
What do we do with this, John? John. And we used to laugh about it. Some of the guys that are closer to me call it Johnny Knows because they just ask me, well, John will know. Ask him. Well, John will know. Ask him.
John will know. I mean, I'll be honest with you, John. That's what I think half the time still. I'm looking at things and, I might message John. or Harry as I call you. I'll have to explain why I call you Harry. John should have started this off. John's business is Enfield Refurbishments. So I took it upon myself to call you Harry.
Harry.
Because it's Harry Enfield, and I just couldn't shake it. And I think to this day, I still call you Harry more than I call you John. And I have to second myself. I'll write a message to you, and then I have to take the Harry out because I think I'm being rude. Just forget.
My thing, which is quite good, is that I used to mix up your number and your colleague's number.
Scott's
and I always used to ring Scott and say, "You're right, Dan. Yeah, I don't know where he is, but he's not on this number." After 6 months. And that's how easy it is. Yeah,
that happens still. I give people Scott's number.
Exactly.
Do you want some inventory business? Yes, ring Scott. Yes, he's my number. It's Scott's number.
Forward it to him. If it's hard, let him have it. But that was literally
happens a lot.
Literally within those years of working for that company, I ended up when I became a foreman on site. I was invited to the company Christmas do. And that was a big thing in the 90s, Christmas parties for massive companies. I mean, this company, I won't say the actual company name because they're no longer trading as that name anymore. But at one point, they were one of the largest family-owned businesses. They started in 1887. And they got 29 offices, of which one was in Duke Street in Fenton.
I was going to say, did it begin with S?
It began with S. And I worked for them for 10 years, and I sat on the chairman's table, and I can't remember if my feet were tapping, my knees were knocking, my teeth were grinding, and there was my name tag, John Argyle, and then next to me, chairman. And I was like, oh my goodness, they've put me next to the chairman at my very first Christmas do.
Did you sit with Ray Herbert?
Well, I knew Ray, but I actually sat next to John Seddon.
See, now, Ray, I love Ray. I loved Ray. Obviously, Ray's passed away. I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Ray I used to play football for a team local called Woolstanton, and Ray was Woolstanton through and through. Yeah. And obviously, as being a joiner and playing football, Ray quite liked having a chat about joinery. And obviously, I knew of that company, beginning with S, because some of my friends worked for the company, and they served their time there. Serve time again.
Yeah.
Ray was old school joiner as well, wasn't he? I liked Ray.
There were so many people that had a lot of respect for Ray, and a lot of the guys around him. And I always remember it was sort of if you had the chippies come from Stoke, you always felt a little bit more intimidated.
Could they've been trained by Ray?
This chippy's from head office, and you were like, ooh.
Yes. To be fair, they did have a good bunch around them as well. There were some good blokes on that company. There were some great blokes. And when you said that you'd done a bit and you're actually from Staffordshire, which is obviously God's country, John, let's not get you construed.
No.
Best county in absolute country.
Proud to have that on my thing. Born in Lichfield.
That's it, Staffordshire, mate. The oat cake enough just for the oat cakes alone. Literally. Put the county.
That is an education if you've never had oatcakes, and I'm sure you'll do that on your podcasts about traditional things from.
I think at some point, because I ask that many times about oatcakes, is I'm gonna turn up at tool fairs with a load of oatcakes, give them out, and when I get to doing the YouTube more regularly, I'm gonna make oatcakes just to one episode. On oatcakes, so I can just push people to that question. They are a delight, though, John.
They are, absolutely. Yeah, I haven't had any in a while because my friends in Stoke are no longer with us, so I've lost that contact with them. But occasionally, I do speak to people. Yes, I know, but I haven't got that far yet. I haven't come north yet. We need to do that. You come south, you need to come north.
We'll do. Well, to be honest, John, the idea of the podcasts was that I would be doing them with yourselves and people that I've been having on the podcast. Obviously, Matt from Florida, that's a different ball game. That they will still exist.
The road trip.
But the majority of them, especially because I class a lot of you as my friends, I wanted to bring it to, because this is good, but obviously sometimes it overlaps a little bit. It's a bit awkward. It's not quite the same as when we're in person. And then grow them podcasts that way. But for now, this is brilliant. And to be able to spend time, not much time, it hasn't got to be a lot of time, just but with fellow tradesmen at their work or their place of work to understand, the reasons and the questions that we're asking you now. So we get a bigger picture for everybody to understand, give us all a voice, and then obviously move things forward as we go in the future. But I can definitely bring oatcakes with me, John. That's
absolutely
not a problem.
That's almost like sweetening the deal.
I'm taking them everywhere. They're coming up and down the country because every time I go somewhere, they say, "Have you brought any oatcakes?" And I'm like, "Well, no, should have."
There will be that divide across the country though, where they don't understand them.
It's so someone's trying to explain what it was, a breakfast wrap. Not really, but yes.
No.
It's not a crepe. No, it's not an oat cake, technically, a cake. It's one on its own. It's an absolute treasure.
It's a regional treasure specifically to that part of Staffordshire.
It is. Oh, also, what probably best said on the podcast is, if anyone's struggling to understand me and John, if we start getting into it and our accents go deeper into our local heritage, I'll probably put subtitles on YouTube.
We can do.
So if we start going, "Alright, lad, I was Boston, do it, lad. How at thee?" People don't understand what's going on. But we'll get off oatcakes, John, because we'll never stop talking about oatcakes because they're too nice.
Food's something that all tradesmen take part in.
Let's touch quickly on social media, because that's another complete rabbit hole if we go too deep into it. But so when we started our little invention and stuff, John, obviously we came across your social media page, and you look like you've been doing it quite a bit longer than, let's say, the majority of people that I follow. So you seem to have been at the Instagram thing for quite a while. 2015, you see. So I don't think we started till 2018. That 3 years is a big difference. And you see a big change.
Absolutely, very much so. Yeah. There's been some good changes and some bad changes, in my opinion.
Yeah,
particularly with Instagram.
It's going to come construed sometimes. Obviously, followers doesn't relate to content, that doesn't relate to engagement, that doesn't relate to the people that you speak to. But for someone like yourself, and for someone like myself, like I'm quite happy message people and message people back. If I don't get a response, that's not a problem. There's people I still I've messaged over the years who've never got back to me, which is fine. I mean, that's just the way it goes. But people like yourself, obviously, answer straight back, and I appreciate that. And I know you spend probably about as much time as me constantly I wouldn't say working on social media because that's not what I mean, but like replying to messages, working on your content, because no one's paying you for it. It's a labour of love, and it's something that you enjoy. And obviously you've trained apprentices over the years, and it's obviously something that you've looked at and thought, I like this platform. One is some self-promotion, but I know you don't get work through Instagram. That's not how you use it. But at the same time, to share how you do things, because it's a natural progression for someone like yourself who's good at doing it, John. So you deliver your stories well, and obviously you've taught apprentices for long enough to give them a good idea of what's going on.
Yeah.
Excuse me, just a massive spider just nearly ate me.
You're not a Spider-Man.
No, he was. I don't mind that. I'm not going to show you a picture. He was huge. He just come out of nowhere. Just get rid of that quick on nervous breakdown. Jesus Christ, where's that gone? But how do you find, or do you enjoy doing it, John? Because I know I've had a conversation recently where you were a little bit out of love with it, weren't you? A bit.
So my first introduction to Instagram in July 2015 was then my current apprentice saying to me, we should do something on social media. And I went, well, I've got a Twitter account, I said, but I don't do Facebook and don't do this. He said, well, no, Instagram's different. He said, you could try this. He said, and you could have a go and see if you like it. And I said, well, you'll have to show me, because I got to be honest, one of my first smartphones wasn't until about 2012 was my first iPhone I think that I had that was a smartphone as such that you could actually use the internet on. And he gave it to me, the account, and said, here's the password. You have a go and see if you like it. And that was how it grew from there. And I enjoy loading up stories, teaching people, showing people. And I almost, to start with, made it part of the teaching process for them as well, for me, because I had no idea what social media was at all.
So you were teaching and learning at the same time.
I was lucky enough to have lads around me that had absolutely no idea about construction, carpentry, joinery, anything at all, but were quite good on social media, because obviously everybody communicates in a different way. So there's that many different apps for that many different types of communication. Yeah. But Instagram seemed to be one of those that, at the time, it didn't appear judgmental. Are you with me? So you didn't have to do certain things. It was more relaxed. You could have a better amount of pictures. You could have more information. There was more tags to take place. I mean, it took me about 6 months to learn the whole tagging system, because at that time I didn't understand why people weren't engaging. And somebody said to me, well, if you don't do this and you don't do that, you don't get feedback. And we started. And then after we'd started doing that, I met people and I said, why don't we all get together and we'll go and do a show? Let's go and have a look at a tool show, because you got to remember, back in 2000 and 2001, I'd already been to Cologne. I'd already been to Dusseldorf. I'd already been and done the shows. And back in those days, that was how people showed off what they were selling. So their new ideas. So, for instance, your idea of your U-Scribe jig before the days of social media would have been a very different game to what it is now, because you can appeal to millions of people in a split second, whereas if you wanted to appeal to the same people, you had to almost get yourself either on YouTube, or you had to go and physically see it and get people to give you their email to get feedback, to get figures, to find out whether it was interesting. So I was able to do all of the things that I needed to do. And at the time, you know, we were going to use it for creating work, but I've got that many contacts over the last 30 years of work. I've never needed the platform or any of them for work at all, for content.
I appreciate that, John. And I think using Instagram now, where the way it's changed, it has very much changed over the couple of years, 2.5 years that we've used it, or I've used it, if you know what I mean. I've seen the change in the platform. So it's just monetized, you know. If you're not spending money on it, it's kind of a bit hard work at the minute. Yeah, you know,
it's got harder. It's definitely got harder. They've
got themselves into a bit of a corner where they've really worked well at making it pay. And from the bit of work that we do with the platform, it does really work well if you do target your audiences, for example, to get people to see you, not necessarily return a sale, because again, I'm not a salesman and we're not going to go down that route of trying to sell. But they've got it so it's very niche now. So like for example, for yourself, if you wanted to attract clients in your area, you can just pick your area and a very small part of your area, and then they will see it. I mean, we've tested it ourselves, and it's scary when your own product has been promoted to yourself, if you know what I mean. So you'll turn your social media on, and your Facebook's telling you should like this product, because when
people say to you, "Oh, have you heard about them such and such, blah blah blah," and you go, "Yes, I know them."
I met that idiot, Dan. I've seen him after he's had 10 pints.
They start off positive.
You've also made a lot of friends. I say friends. I don't know exactly if you want to call some of the people you meet friends.
Yes, I can. I've met some really nice people that we are close friends with. Yeah, I have. But,
like say from your social media, and obviously, you can always stop me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure you've made some good contacts in the tool world too by doing the shows and using social media. Because you've went with I think you went to Stabila headquarters, didn't you?
Yeah.
But that was a good.
Yeah, I was very lucky to be invited. And I met. What's funny is I think I actually met one of the guys that I met nearly 19 years later. I think I met him at the show because we were talking about one particular spirit level that was launched at that show, and he said, "I think I probably met you, John, back in 2001." He said, because that was the year that level was launched. No. And now we're really, and they've been over and they've come over to our place and they've sat down and we've had lunch, and we've invited them into our home, and I'm treated as a member of the Stabila family. It's very nice.
Nice, John. That is nice, because they say a lot of you say recent posts over the last year have had I wouldn't say a Stabila theme, because I know you're not targeting. You're not an influencer. No. I'm not going to call you an influencer, John, because that's not how it works. You're not working the angle. You're a tradesman on the tools, like myself and, and the rest of the people that I seem to surround myself with. I mean, there's influencers out there. I hate the word influencer, but I don't hate influencers. I don't want it to be construed.
No.
I just don't like the word influencer, because for me, it kind of diminishes some of the products or some of the things that are getting sold. When I see somebody that I think maybe they shouldn't be the person that should have been selected to promote that tool or promote that brand of whatever it was. Because when you see the work, you think, wow, it's a bit toss, really. I know 10 or 20 blokes with 500 followers were far better at putting that product through its paces. But these guys have worked so hard on the social media to get 20s, 30s, 40s, or even more thousands of followers.
Yeah.
It's very enticing for some of these companies. But I think they've all come a cropper a little bit. I remember speaking to Tom from Stabila. You know Tom from Stabila, won't you?
Yeah.
The last trade show, and a few companies have had their fingers burnt dealing with influencers that were fake. And also spoke to Leon Trade-Ectory. Leon's very clued up. He's a good friend of ours, isn't he? I like Leon. And
he's a good guy.
He knows. He can spot. He can spot him now. He's clued up. And just slapping Stabila up your webpage or up your Instagram isn't really what it is. So if Stabila are coming to your house, John, obviously they trust your word and your work and your review, your feedback, isn't it? If you know what I mean. So one of the reasons why I like to have you on this podcast and appreciate the time you're spending with me, John, is I value your opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not kissing you off.
No. Just because I've been doing it for 30 plus years and I have experience of using certain things isn't a given that I should know everything about it.
Exactly.
But I do like it when I speak to the people at the company or at a particular manufacturers and I mention something and they say, "Oh, we didn't think about that, or we didn't know that, or we didn't realise that," and it's nice then because what they want is they want a tradesman's opinion. They don't want a magazine's opinion that glossify it and stick it out there. They're not looking for that. They wanted people that were passionate about what they did. And something that the factory manager said to me when we were over there was, he said, "We've never had 3 guys in the factory before that we couldn't get out."
Who did you go with, John? I can't remember.
So I was lucky. I went with Ken from Hud's Tiling.
Yes,
and I went with Tony from Unequal Heating.
Unequal
Heating. So you got a tiler, a plumber, and a carpenter, and you chuck them in a factory that makes spirit levels, and they actually had to ask us if there was a possibility that we could leave the factory because at one point production was being delayed.
Because you were
messing. we were asking things that there was times when we spoke to them about things that nobody else had mentioned, and I said that's probably because they've never used a spirit level for 20 years. Are you with me? There's a difference between using something, seeing something, appreciating something, or just being invited to tick a box, and that's never really been me. So I jumped at the chance to go because I wanted to see how it was made, and we got the very, very good insight of that. And we're one of the lucky few that have been able to go there and to appear in their own magazine of the month last year. Talking to us about the fact that we'd been over there and featured, and that magazine is for the employees only.
Yeah. So it's an important bit of feedback. Obviously, they value everything that you're saying, and obviously you've been able to see it from the other side. So it's kind of a win-win because now you can say to people, well, I've seen it being made. I know how good and how accurate and how much detail and how precise the product is. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to question Stabila's quality anyway. I don't even think it's up for debate. But at least there's a few people out there that people can access and go, so what do you reckon? Because I can remember you telling us the story. You look at a level, you look at a bubble, and you see the two rings, and everyone thinks they're painted on, but they're actually put on.
Inserted rings in. We had a go
by hand. It's by hand, isn't it? You told me by hand.
And they're done by the ladies in the factory, and they still do that job by hand. It's not done by a machine, and they average one bubble every 10 to 20 seconds. It took me and Ken a minute and a half to get one ring in, and then we got it in upside down.
Oh, but
and then they hold the bubbles up. They hold up 20 bubbles in one go up to the light, and then they are the quality control, and then they go on to the next point. It's a scary thought when people say to you, "Oh, you got a spare bubble for your level." Actually, yes.
There's tons of them, and there's two ladies in Germany putting the lines on them.
Unbelievable that they do that. And when you go there and you see it for real, yes, there's automation and there's new stuff and there's fancy, shiny stuff for the factory and all the rest of it. But when you see the human touch, that's the precision.
It is. And again, like I say, it comes back to being able to see it done. I mean, there's that program. Who's the guy from MasterChef that turns up everywhere? It's great inside the factory, I think it's called, isn't it? Greg Wallace, that's it. He's really good, Greg. Oh, Greg here. He gets dead excited over the most mundane things on that program, which always makes me laugh. But then I think, if I was inside Festool factory, I'd be that guy. I'm like, hang on, whoa, let me see that. Stop, wait. Because I know I'm interested in it, and I want to prove to myself or to everybody else why I think it's good. And then you've got that basis behind it. Well, I've seen that be made. This is why it is. Yeah. So a little bit unfair to Greg Wallace there, maybe. Quite excited the other day over curry sauce.
He gets
a little bit sad.
Yeah, he gets excited, but then he puts his point across, which is good, because then people are getting excited about it. Yeah,
he does. I mean, like I say, John, we've met and we've been around the Festool. We'll come to that in a minute. But just coming back to the tool fair angle, obviously we've met you at quite a few. We've had a good few socials, and let's hope when this virus is all over, we'll be able to have a few good more. But it might be a bit longer than we all want. But let's talk about you and the tool fairs, John, because I go to tool fairs, but you, sir, you go to tool fairs. And I mean, you do some traveling. And I'm going to talk about your friend, the Insane Dane, because I don't think he gets the credit he deserves, really, because he's mad as a brush. And I think I always think people should be watching what he's doing, because it's truly amazing the things that he does on his social media. But he seems to just slip away. I don't know if people are just scared or they think he's nuts. I mean, he is the Insane Dane.
He's an unguided missile, that man.
Yes. How did you come to be meeting?
Well, this is a social media story that a few people know. But basically, how it all started was I was sent a gift package in 2015 from Festool headquarters, and inside that gift package there was many, many, many items that are rare, many of the items that didn't exist in this country, and some of the items I'd only heard about in whispers. And one of the items,
little USB fobs and bits and pieces like that, you mean?
Basically is they built the Festool Domino, and when they launched it, they did a promotion where they actually did a set of dominoes in a box.
Oh, yeah, I get you.
And they were only available in certain continents, certain countries in the continent. So we never got them over here. And they were only for a promotional, so they would have been maybe at the head office in Bury. And they sent 2 boxes of dominoes, and I had to put them in a domino machine. And we did a bit of a joke one afternoon and said to anybody fancy a game of dominoes? And the Insane Dane at that point was a Festool fan from a tool point of view, but he said that what he thought was I'm going to beat that Englishman, and I'm going to get the most merchant, and I'm going to get some rarer merchandise, and I'm going to get much more, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And he actually
says this to me. Did you just see it as a competition straight away?
He saw it as And you can ask him this himself when you speak to him. He said, "I'm going to beat that English ass." That was his exact words. And one afternoon, I had a message from him on Instagram because he'd started speaking English and he'd been getting quite good at it. And he said, "John, would you mind if we were to speak? I'd like to learn the English language a bit better. I've been taught this and I've been taught that." And we met in 2017 via a WhatsApp audio call, which I still remember to this day, probably lasted over an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Over an hour and a half we spoke for. And at the time, he was looking for certain things that I managed to get him, and he managed to get me. And then I organised to do a fancy trip the next year, and I really, really wanted to go to Festal headquarters. I've been trying to get to Festal headquarters for 20 plus years. And apparently you can't go unless you know the right people at a certain level. And I got invited to Festal Connect in America through the now current boss of Festal GB, through Leon from Festal, as he was then.
Yes.
And the problem is that we had to get our own way there. So we booked the flights to go, and then 2 weeks before the gig, they changed the venue. And they changed the venue from Indiana to Las Vegas.
Well, it's not a bad change, John. Is it that?
It's the other side of the country.
I wouldn't.
And also they changed the date as well.
Oh, the date's a big one. I mean, the Vegas one. Honestly, that's an upgrade.
The date changed, and at the time I was supposed to be going with a friend of mine and his wife, and I'd said to my missus, "Look, it's Las Vegas. I'd love to go because I've never been. We can go and do all of the sites. We can go and do this. We can do that. One day I need on my own to do a bit of Festal." And she went, "One day. That's all you get. One day."
She knows you.
Okay, that's fine. It's one day. And my friend and his wife couldn't go, and she'd been taken quite ill. And I asked him at the time, I said, "Do you mind if I ask the Insane Dane if he'd like to go?" Now, you've shook up a bottle of champagne before you've took the cork off, and you've seen what state it gets into. I can only imagine from the Insane Dane's point of view that he was like a pop bottle that had been shook up, the lid was on. And when I said, "Would you like to join me to go to Las Vegas to Festal Connect in 2018, he just exploded. And we'd met before at a show, and we'd been speaking, and he was so excited.
I'm pretty sure because we met you at D&M that year.
2017
he came over, didn't he? So we met all of you at that one. And I can remember you were talking about the bigger trips at the time. I'll be honest with you, John, I drank a lot of alcohol that day, so I can't remember.
We did.
I can't remember all the ins and the outs, but I can just remember, obviously, because he doesn't drink, does he? The Insane Dane. So he's another level of crazy.
He only drinks Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
No tea, no coffee, no water, Coca-Cola.
But he sat there chatting away with what can only be described as a bunch of drunken
heathens,
tool fanatic weirdos, really.
we are a niche group.
We are a niche group of people, but it's a good group of people. I think more people warm up to it eventually. It's an awkward thing. I mean, again, it comes down to you meeting strange people in full of tools, and your common ground is always the work and the tools. But it can be awkward for some people to have a conversation with you. I found that more so this year with doing the tool fairs ourselves with the Keyblades lads, is that people that I'll talk to regular, then it's a quick hello and they're a bit awkward, and then they come back a bit later and it's not so bad. That's a tricky thing. And I could imagine after just meeting the Insane Dane for that one day, for them few hours, how about literally pissed himself in excitement.
Absolutely.
to go over. And if I can remember rightly, I've seen the pictures, and you were also, I wouldn't say lucky enough because he's there, but you saw Festival Sedge.
Yeah.
Whilst over there, Brian. I mean, I like Brian. I like his videos. He's
a funny guy, Brian.
I like all that. And people who've seen the Insane Dane will know that he walks around with a sustainer on his head.
With a Cis 5 on his head.
He's upgraded his, hasn't he, as well?
Yeah. He's got the new shape now.
Got the new shape, hasn't he? I saw that the other day. I mean, I'm gonna tag him in any social media posts I put with this podcast because people need to see his page, because the effort that he's gone into on some of them drone video posts is seriously amazing. They should have gone viral. They're just so good. I just can't get my head around it.
Some of them did. Some of them did go, and Festal now at the headquarters actually do use him for internal training for people to learn. One of the boss men at Festal describes us, me and Keatle, as super fans. He said there isn't a classification for you except for your super fans.
That's right. I would definitely say, and that goes across the brands. I mean, I know people who are Makita super fans, Bosch super fans, DeWalt super fans, as we know, John Jones, as we one of the last tool fairs. John's big DeWalt fan. There's loads of people out there who are big DeWalt fans, and again, I'm almost sure John and a few others have been invited to DeWalt things, to do reviews and stuff. You know, the social media aspect is good, but like I say, that Insane Dane trip where he went to Vegas and he was paying homage on the floor like he was praying. So, one, I'd never think of it. Two, he did it. He's just great. I just think he's a really good guy to be watching. I think he's funny. And like I say, you met Sedge, which most people will associate with Festool. I know obviously it's the American thing, but his videos obviously translate really well anyway. And I think, well, let's put it this way. And I'm not slagging off Phil Beckley, because Phil Beckley's a nice guy and I've met him a few times. I think he's a super chap. But they couldn't be any different, could they, if you put them both together? Brian, the American Festool representative, is loud. He's active. He's got his little catchphrases and how he gets things across. I mean, it's very American. Don't get me wrong. That's just how it is. And then Phil is like he's almost like he's German. He's robotic, isn't he? But he's very good. I said, I don't mean it in a bad way. And I hope if Phil ever does listen to this, he doesn't take it down slagging him off. I don't mean that. It's just that was the view I had of Festool.
They are both
very autonomous, very German. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, who's this guy? this American guy's.
He's geared up for their market. Absolutely.
It is different. It is very much marked. I mean, to be fair, if you turn up at a tool show in England and you were Festool Sedge, it probably just wouldn't go down well anyway. The British people.
I don't think they'd get him.
They probably run off. Like, I enjoy it. I quite like it. But the American market, Americans are far more confident and bold as brass anyway, you know, and they've got no problem with confrontation, and they've got no problem questioning someone on the spot. So you need to be that level.
Yeah.
Whereas here, you know, people don't really...
We're slightly more reserved being British.
Yeah, they don't really question it so much. And we would question it in person. And I know you, when I've been around you and we've been to tool fairs and things, and you've gone, well, what about such and such? Because the Makita one will do this. And we're having a conversation about it. Whereas in America, they would be like, the Makita one already fucking does it, man. You know, you're stuck, aren't you, there? Because you can't argue. You have to go, yeah, you know.
No.
And
that's right.
It's a little bit of a complete chalk and cheese, like you say, but there's no two ways of putting it. There's the tool fair in Vegas must have been so much on another level compared to the tool fairs here.
It was. We actually we said this. We actually felt as if we were treated like celebrities
because you were two British guys.
These two British guys. Well, they what they did is they referred to us as Team Europe.
They always do that. Why did they put us in Europe? We're Brexit, for God's sake.
Team Europe. We were in 2018, and we had a list of all the places that we'd been to on our backs, and so many people came up to us and said, oh, we know you, we follow you. Oh, we know you, we follow you. And they go, You've come over here for one day.
Yep. Well, no, I'm in Vegas and I'm doing all the other things with my family. But yes, I am here.
But primarily the reason to going to Vegas was to get to Festival Connect.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was the one goal.
Well, from what I can see, again, we can only judge it from what we can see, but the budget for the tool fairs or the tool shows or whatever you want to call it in America surpasses ours on a scale that's unmeasurable.
Absolutely.
I watched some of the guys going to their version of what our tool fairs are, and theirs literally piss on ours. They're having barbecues. They've got bands on. They're getting really treated well. And it translates because they seem all buy into the systems then, and they've all got it. Where here, I don't know, man. It doesn't seem work, does it? It doesn't seem be.
It's a different...
Treated as well. You just don't do it. Everything's just small scale, isn't it? It's not the same.
The marketing budget in the UK is nowhere near as big as some of the other European countries, for instance, like Germany, France, Italy, the Netherlands. Even that, theirs is much greater than ours.
We are tiny, though, John, aren't we? You know.
Yeah. I wouldn't like to know what our percentage for the tools is in the world for what we do, but we're certainly respected that we know and we like what we like.
I think British tradesmen do get well thought of. And even some of the American guys that I've spoke to, their benchmark's still some of the British buildings and works and things. So the references. So I think our heritage, obviously, the American one doesn't go back as far, but is testament. But our size is our downfall, isn't it? I mean, I bet they sell more in one state in America than we buy in a year sometimes. And they've got times that by 52, 53 states, wherever there is. I forget now. It's crazy, isn't it? So we've got back to so you've toured the Europe and the world, really, technically.
Yeah, we've done
to these places. And I mean, we possibly wouldn't be getting invited to the other side of the world unless you got tapped up with Makita, I suppose. But Japan would be. We are working on going. We've made noises to be able to get to Russia when the next time goes, because we'd love to go. We'd love to go to Festival Russia. I've emailed and spoke to the managing director of Festival Russia, so it's a possibility. That'd be a good day out, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
getting on the vodka.
Yeah. Well, that'd be good for me. Won't be good for Keetle.
Misking with the Ruskies. I think part of me would be terrified, part of me really enjoy that. I think I'd have to try and dip my toe in Chernobyl whilst I was there, see if we can just pop over.
That's what I'm saying. You'd want to make it a Balkan stroke, that type visit, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You'd have to do something, I think, in that way. So I'd have to sell it to my missus that we would go to Poland and we'd do a couple of things there, and then we'd
John, go back to the start of this podcast. Record that bit that you said and just repeat that. Make that as win. You've got no problems there. That will fly anywhere. I'm using that. I'm just going to save that as my message tone when I get a message and my lady looks at me. This is what I'm doing. This is why I do it. Look, John nailed it. But also, we've met a ton of other people. So I'm going to ream a few off. Stop me if there's more. I'm only just going to say these people's names because of these people that we've met at these shows. And possibly I've met them through yourself or other people in shall we say, the group. So we met John Jones Interiors.
John Jones.
And that was a little bit of fun because obviously we had the DeWalt Fest Tool slagging match. And obviously John's friend, Julian, who, friends of all of us, but obviously Julian does a lot of work for DeWalt. So we banded them both together as the DeWalt boys. And I think he was a little bit scared to meet you, wasn't he, at some point? I think
he was to start with, but the banter
got to a point where it was not going to get physical, but John was like, I don't know if I dare meet John now after I've slagged his tools off all this time.
He did say that he used to use a certain other brand of level, and since he'd met me and he'd seen what he'd done, he'd now changed over to another brand, and he wasn't aware that he'd been holding himself back for many years, was his phrase.
See, and he learned. I speak to John regularly. John's a friend of ours, and he said that he obviously takes your view highly and uses it in his work, especially with his levels now for a start. And then we've got other people. I know that other people possibly know, but like obviously Mark Maxfield, Maxie. Did you meet him through
Mark Maxfield?
Did you meet him through social media again, or did you know Mark previous?
Yeah. I met Mark by following him. We engaged with each other, and now his wife and mine.
Be careful what you're saying. Be careful what you're saying, John, about engaging people. We're getting the wrong idea.
Yeah. No, we do things socially.
Oh, that's nice. See, that's not bad, is it? And then I'm going to call them by their Instagram name, just so that it translates to when I tag these. But obviously, Rob HBO Frames.
Oh yes, Mr. Spicer. He's a force to be reckoned with. We call him the bulldog in the china shop.
I think Rob would probably accept that as a very good analogy.
Yeah, the bulldog in the china shop.
But again, Rob's a good lad. And he did, I think, Rob's been to Germany, hasn't he, as well, I think?
Yes, he's done a couple of shows with us. Yeah.
He's done a couple of the big ones, hasn't he? And then a few others. So we've met John Coombe. John's a good lad. John's a funny lad. Yes. And obviously, trajectory Leon. I like John Coombe. I'm going to tell us about John Coombe just quickly. As we went into lockdown and everyone was trying to stay in touch and go on the chat groups and stuff, I forget the name of the app. I think it was House Party, it was called. So you're like, we'll have a get together, we'll have a drink, we'll have a quick chat. And they were joking, saying that it was going to be a fancy dress. I didn't get a fancy dress, John. I had me jumper on and I had a beer. John Coombe turned up dressed as a Christmas tree.
He's great.
Honest, I love him. He made
love his sense of humour.
It's just brilliant, so much fun. And obviously, like say, Leon, Trajectory Leon, Festool Leon, however people will remember. Yeah. We met Leon, his Trajectory had started, so I didn't know him from the Festool.
No, okay.
But I like Leon. I do like Leon. Leon's a good crack again, and he's done really well. I like the Trajectory thing. I think it's
he's managed to grow that very well.
Yeah,
very well.
He's done brilliant. And I'm hoping. I spoke to Leon about doing a podcast, and he's all for it, but he would rather do it in person. So, which is great because I like to do them in person myself, where I can. And finding out about that story is going to be a good one, I think. Finding out how he came up with the idea and developed the idea, and how it can benefit us as tradesmen. Because to be honest, most of the people that I hope will listen, John, are trades related or that kind of background. So obviously, something that Leon's doing is self-promotion for trades, which I'm all about, you're all about, and hopefully we'll do something in the future down the line with the ideas that we've spoke about behind the scenes about the youth and a few other things that we can get involved with some of these other companies and businesses I've spoken to, people like Leon as well. That'll be great, so we can do a little bit of something outside of our normal work. And then Thomas Maiden. I like Tom. We've met Tom. Tom, I would like to class as the breaker of most tools.
He is the self-destructed tester of all power tools.
I've never known a guy buy and sell so many tools or break them.
he can if they have a department in every field of life. But he could be in destructive testing.
Destructive testing.
Here, Tom, we want to see if that will survive a day on site. Go. It's like the thing in Avengers, Hulk smash.
Yes, a bit like that. I mean, follow his stories and his work, and he's doing some fantastic work. And just every now and then, I'll just see like a level, a Benton 2, or a brand new framer, completely dead. And I'm like, I don't know. I was broke it. He's either very unlucky, or he put some smack bang through the paces, and that's why some of them die.
Yeah. Yes.
We've got Tom Molyneux. We've met a few times. We like Tom.
Don't know Tom. What's his?
You remember last time when we had a social and we literally walked miles to get food?
Oh yes. Okay.
Tom's got the nice hair. Wears the hats.
I did. Yes, I do. Isn't he? He's a joiner, isn't he, Tom?
Yeah. Does nice stuff. Tom does nice stuff. He uses more dominoes than me, you, Festool, Sedge, and anyone else combined.
Love it.
Guy loves a domino. He's single-handedly keeping the beach domino game going.
Good lad. Good lad.
And then if there's anyone else you'd like to mention, John, anyone you met along your travels you'd like to give a little bit of a shout out?
Yeah, you got so
many. I mean, there's Crunchjoke Frames, Jamie. He's another good
Jamie
lad.
Arnold he's really nice. Jamie,
Another good lad. Does another
Jamie
lad doing
from the
fantastic
start.
work.
Yeah, he's great. And again, he's another oak framing man, but from a joinery background, not from a framing background. So his transition towards that was obviously coming through from a joiner's shop, and he runs a team of guys, and they work and they do a lot of heritage work as well. So I picked up quite a few things from him. We first started talking over his love of knives, and when Festal did the anniversary knife in 2015 for the 90-year celebration.
Did he want to know?
He happened to comment on the lock knife, and he said, "Oh, I'd like one of those." And that's how Jamie and I met.
Through knives.
He
wanted me. Where are you next time we meet up?
Yeah, he wanted one of those lock knives. He said, "I like a nice knife," and I sent him one, and we became friends.
A friendship over knives. I bet there's not many people that can say that, John. Really?
Yeah. But you could say to.
Oh, sorry, it's overlapping.
You could say that was the point of it.
Oh, John.
Did you fall into that?
John.
Fell into that?
I did. I'm full of crap jokes, mate. Don't start.
Yeah, well, I'm a lover of a good pun.
Yeah, and there's a good group of people out there that go to the trade shows. So anyone obviously that's interested or is about, feel free to say hello when we're there. And the more socialising, the better, John. I believe is the best way of putting it.
It's great. It's great to swap stories and views, and people come to me and they say, "Why this? Why that? Why did you do this? Why did you do that?" And I always say to people, "Don't take my word for it. Try it. Have a go." and one of the phrases I use with every one of the lads or girls that I train is this is the way I was taught. If you can show me a way that's better and faster, then I'm happy to change what I'm doing. Because I'm happy for people to show me a different way. Because young people bring something different to the table.
100%. I agree with that, John. I've learned more tips, tricks, tools in the last 2.5 years than I did in the previous 15.
Yeah.
Through social media, watching people like yourself and the lads that we spoke about. I mean, I was watching Rob the other day. He's got the Mafal Morton.
Morton?
The Tenon one.
Oh, the Tenon one, yeah, the one that, yeah.
And that's it. Then we're having a half an hour conversation about it. I'll never need one ever in my life.
He's an expert at creating man glitter.
Oh, he likes a mess. He likes a mess and a massive barbecue. Wait till you see a picture of his barbecue. It's huge. He's bought barbecue enough.
What I love about him is that everything he does is bigger and quite impressive, but he still likes the finesse. He's still got that eye for quality.
You've got to, haven't you? I mean, they're doing some high-end work in some high-end places. They're going to get found out. I mean, the oak framework looks rough, shall we say, but it's far from it. That is some...
There's a different level of finesse with this.
There's a fair bit of engineering and pre-planning and thought that goes into that.
You need a bigger saw and a bigger hammer, but he gets there.
Oh, yeah, there's some hammering. There's some serious hammering, and there's a lot of C wording.
yeah, and that's not the tools.
Yeah, the see you next Tuesday word is me.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of us friends that we've met from down south, it's a normal word to them. It's just like, "Hey up, mate, how you doing?" That's a C word. This is a C word, and it takes me a few hours bedding because I'm like, "Oh God," but they just
we don't use that one unless we're obscenities.
Yeah, that's well, we treat it as like the worst word in the world. Yeah. They treat it as, "I was your wife, she's a..."
yeah. Please don't call my wife that, or else she'll see that part of it.
If I called my wife that, I would expect her under the patio.
Yeah. With the help.
But we won't give him a bad shout. And then we'll wrap that up, John, and just say that obviously I would like to pick your brain again in the future. Hopefully we can do this again, but in person, so we can come to your place of work, see what you're doing, and do it. I don't want to say this is not the proper way of doing a podcast, because obviously this is a fantastic way of speaking to people, finding out who they are, and putting faces to names, and actually finding out how you came about to be doing what you're doing, and why people should be following you or taking what you say as valid, information, views and stuff like that. And a big topic that we've spoke about a couple of times is obviously the youth. You have had 15 apprentices, and I'm pretty sure at some point you're going to transition yourself into, I don't want to say a teacher, a college type guy, but I think at some point, you'll be using, whether it's the platform you're using now or YouTube platform or something, to be teaching what you know, maybe over a broader scale, shall we say, instead of one-on-one. And we'll work on doing something with the youth as we go forward, John. I'm pretty sure they're gonna really enjoy your take on what is going on in our joinery world, shall we call it, trades world, because there's a big gap now. There's a big gap. I mean, I'm 36, and I don't see many young lads, and I'm talking like really, there's a big fall in kids in the industry, whether it's electricians, bricklayers, plumbers, tilers. There's a big gap. You don't see. I mean, I can remember doing my apprenticeship, and there was tons. Sounds daft, but now you look around, guys are just working by themselves. There's not really.
No,
it's not really happening.
We're short of 250,000 tradesmen every year, and you better train 250,000 people to a decent standard. They've got to want to learn, and that's what you've got to do. You've got to inspire them. You've got to find that spark inside, get it, light it, and feed it, and that's where it becomes hard.
It is, and obviously the kids are getting a little bit brainwashed by social media too. They think they're going to make quick money online, or with these like glamourifying. What's that word, John? Glamourous-ing? How would you glorify? Glorify, mate. Glorify.
But they make it out to be a glamorous thing to do, and of course that's very hard to tell people. That I'm afraid you've got to start at the bottom and work your way to the top.
And also, they glorify idiots these days. So every reality star. That's not fair. Not every reality star is an idiot. That's not what I mean. No. But they glorify that way into, say, fame or money.
Yeah.
So it works as it works, as then kids then buy into it, and they think that is how they're gonna go about their work life. They're just gonna be on social media, wearing a t-shirt or using the phone to make quick money, and then they get a bit in their arse later in life when it's too late. Then them jobs they're gone, and the trade jobs were there, weren't they?
Yeah, correct. I think that there'll be a big change after lockdown. I think people will reassess what they do and what they don't do. And I speak to so many people still that say, I'm thinking of changing my job after lockdown. And I say, I don't think I'd ever change what I do, maybe step back slightly from it. But the one thing that I've always tried to sort of push towards is that I love going to work every day.
Yeah.
Every day is a challenge. Every day is a school day. Every day you learn something new. But if you can teach somebody along the way, just that little bit they retain, then that they'll take with them and pass on to somebody else. And that's the way it's worked with the last half a dozen. They've been quite inspired.
Like your job, 100%. You've got like your job. If you're doing a job you don't like, don't do it. Stop.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to excel at it. You're not going to be good.
I think we're lucky though, Dan, that we love what we do. Are you with me?
Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky for people that don't go into the right path. I mean, I like doing my job. So like I like to get to the job. I like setting it out and like fitting it. So I'm mainly just doing kitchens and bedrooms. So I would call it easy work, but it's not. It's not easy. I don't want to belittle people.
It's easy for you. It's easy for you, but for so many others, mind blowing.
I like to do my job, and I like to do the Uscribe stuff. Obviously, that's a little bit of my character comes out messing around with the social media and the content for the Uscribe and the podcast. You know, I don't want it to be too strict. I'm going to bring a comedy aspect into it moving forward, because that's what the trade is. We're all giving each other, ripping each other bits behind the scenes. And if you're on a job and your mate slips up, he knows about it all week. And that's part of parcel, isn't it? You know, some of the people have got is because they just fucked up.
Nowadays, when it goes wrong, you can stick it on and it never comes off social media.
Exactly.
So that's the only downside.
You can't hide when you make a massive mistake.
You can't do it.
So I like to finish up, John, by just doing a quick 10 questions. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to listen to any of the podcasts, so you won't really know what this is.
No, I'm happy to go in blind.
That's it. So here we go. This is just a little bit of fun. Not the most serious questions, John, but I just like it to be like these introduction episodes are just about you, your background, what your interests are. It builds a bigger picture so that when we get through these introduction podcasts and then we start really talking about things within the industry, we're picking topics and we're talking about things that we'll talk about today in depth, but maybe 2 or 3 of us, and we can get to that. People have got a picture of who you are. I don't want people just, listen to a podcast and then, well, who's that guy, who's that guy, who's that guy, and why are they talking about something, and why should I take their point as valid? I want to build a picture for people of all the people that I speak to, or people that I trust, or people who you can see for yourself when they talk, know what they're on about. So that in future podcasts, no one's going to question. Well, you can still question everyone's credentials. That's freedom of speech. It's tough shit. If someone doesn't agree with you, John, they're not going to agree with you, are they? And that's just how it goes.
No,
but
correct.
That's my idea. So this really has got no bearing on that, John. All that work you just put in about telling us about your life
is worth what?
Is it? And then we'll delve deeper into your personal life another time. So, favorite food?
Chinese.
Well, that's going to ruin the next question. Favorite sport? Because we know this already. Moto. Lawnmower racing.
Strapped onto it. I'm not a big fan, but anything motor racing, anything with an engine attached.
So lawnmower racing for 2. Next question will be an easy one. We know the answer. We're going to ask you anyway. Festool or Makita? You can only pick one.
Festool.
Yes. Tea or coffee?
At the moment, coffee.
Dominoes or biscuits?
Dominoes.
Working inside or working outside?
Outside.
Handmade or bought in?
Handmade.
Chinese or Indian? So this comes back to the first question.
Chinese.
Would you rather £1 million or work for life?
Work for life.
Work for life. He's gone for the work. Now, this might translate, depends if you've got Netflix. Have you seen Tiger King?
Not yet. I know about it.
You've heard about it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you this question anyway, and you can make your own mind up. But the woman's batshit, and I loved it. Did Carol Baskin feed Don to the tigers?
I think yes, from what I've heard.
I think so as well. I think she's batshit crazy. I think the whole program is batshit crazy. And when you get a few hours, John, you need to get...
We are going to watch it. Yeah.
It is... I'm best. I'm not going to ruin it because I'm not going to... No spoilers or anything like that for anyone listening. But I've never come across a program where so many stories of so many batshit crazy people are all intermingled in the things that go on, and you just can't stop watching it. And the main guy, Joe Exotic, is batshit crazy. It's trash, but the best kind of trash you can watch ever.
I've heard it's car crash TV.
It is. Yeah. It's brilliant, John. It's absolutely brilliant. But I'll let you watch that, John, and we can maybe if the lockdown goes on long enough and we're dragging content through the mud, we maybe have a whole podcast on the tech. Get as many people in the group and we could discuss.
Get them all in.
Yeah, because there's nothing else to talk about because no one's done any work for about 5 weeks, apart from a few of you, John. Obviously, I know you've been busy working.
Yeah, I've been lucky.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's one of them, John. Like, obviously, you've not had to change much, but I know your wife works in a different job where she's obviously had to adhere to the social distancing and all the other things that are going on in the world. And you're not going to the pub or going to restaurants like anybody else, but you're a busy man. You tend to not do them many things anyway. But the rest of us, I won't lie to you, John, I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah. Lots of people have said that. It's been a bit of a thought time, but also it's been a bit of a relaxation time. But I can imagine the mental stress is going to kick in soon. People.
Yeah, well, I've done a couple of days of work. So one was in an empty gym, so fine. They're studying a bit of boarding and a few other things. And then I've got a couple of the bits and pieces that I can do for family that, jobs that you normally do in your schedule anyway. But I can probably do them next week or maybe the week after. But I think most of them, construction and manufacturing, probably going to have to kick back in soon because I don't think they can last much longer.
They need to. They need to.
These businesses will be going bankrupt, and that obviously is a bigger problem than moving forward for jobs, the economy and everything else, which could impact all of us work because obviously if people lose their jobs, will they have jobs done? So the next 3 to 6 months is going to be
it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, interesting. I think I'm not a panicker. I'm not worried in that regard, but I am being real and thinking, maybe things are going to be tighter, for a certain amount of people, a certain amount of jobs. I mean, my wife's a beautician, so they're touching people's faces and hands every day.
Yeah.
I mean, them jobs could be a long time till they can be firing back in. So if I'm not working, your savings are only going to last so long, and I've never had a penny off the state. So it would be a strange, I'm just thinking out loud, John, but it'd be a strange way of thinking that we'd all be hand to mouth, wouldn't we?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It'd be a strange old thing to do.
It's going to be interesting to see how people cope with that rely on certain things, as you said, that may not be the norm after this.
Yeah. I think the uncertainty is the problem, and it's uncertainty for everybody. So we're all in the same boat, and I would never like anyone to be pessimistic about it. I'm a very much an optimistic person. I've been spending my time with my family, and I've been spending the time as best I can wisely with what I can do. So we've worked on things behind the scenes. Obviously, YouScribe is the brand everyone sees. Job and Knock is a podcast and a media outlet that I hope to be making a useful, shall we say, outlay or product or whatever. And then we've been thinking about our other ideas and other products that we want to get cracking with, and we've been able to dedicate quite a bit of time on that, really, which is good. So things that we wouldn't have been able to do, John. So I think most people have done that, and I think that's why it comes back to what you just said. Some people are then second guessing: is this what they want to be doing for the rest of their life? Because they've had time to reflect on something that they wouldn't have had time to reflect on, which is a strange way of putting it.
My granddad passed one very important phrase to me, which I always use and I've never forgotten, and that is, you will always have a job if you can use your hands. And that has always worked for me. He said, you'll never be out of work if you've got a trade. And I think that's going to be important.
Cheers, John. And on that note, John, we'll finish, because I think that's a good way of finishing it off. And I hope you stay busy, buddy. I hope you're the best of health and your family stay safe. And fingers crossed, in the next 6 months, if all things go well, we'll be able to meet up on one of our normal outings, or possibly, if it's just social distancing, we will come to you if things are relaxed, and we'll maybe dip a toe back into another podcast and go deeper into a few of them other things that we've discussed regarding tools and the industry. Look after yourself, John.
Take care. Been great to speak to you, Dan.
See you soon, buddy. Thank you very much.
Take care. All the best.
Grazie.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Come again.
Doing a great job.
Thank you very much, sir. I don't think you'll regret it.
Time to go home. I'm out of here.
I'm Pickle Rick!
Thank you so much for being my friends.
The Job and Knock Podcast.